Hello, and welcome to the Anonymity in Qualtrics How-To video module. I am Paul Byrne, Research Data Services Librarian at Syracuse University Libraries. What we will cover today is providing anonymous links for your respondents to use to respond to your survey, using the Anonymize Response option from the Survey Options menu, and using both of these with a contact list. With anonymous links, you can distribute your survey by posting the link or emailing it to your respondents or something like a listserv. In this instance, all respondents use the same link to get to your survey. This is different from when you use a contact list, where everybody on the contact list gets a unique link. This is how Qualtrics tracks who has and has not responded to your survey. Anonymous links can be used with a contact list. You must be sure to use the anonymous link option rather than the default link. This will not record the respondent's name, email, or any embedded data. It will, however, record the IP address and latitude and longitude. The IRB considers IP address to be personally identifying information, so you must be very careful when this is collected in terms of your survey and your respondent's privacy. Let's take a look. So here we have a very basic survey, just a few simple questions. I'm going to show you the survey flow because we have some embedded data here that comes from our contact list. Let's go back to the survey and I'll show you the contact list. You can see the list is one person, just myself. We have 2 bits of embedded data: school, Syracuse University, and title, Research Data Services Librarian. So let's go back to the survey. And first I'm going to show you the email distribution that will collect all of the data so you can see everything that is possible and how you can pare it down from there. So when you get into your distributions, you'll see this, and you can do anonymous link, which we're going to do in a few minutes here. But first I'm going to show you the emails, and you can compose the email. You select your contact list. And certainly if you're still testing it, you want to do send now. And a subject, we're just going to call this test 1. And you can put the body of your email in here. Do not change any of these links here. But what I want to show you is come down here to Advanced Options. And here for link type, you have 3 choices: individual, multiple completes, and anonymous. Individual is the default, and this means that each person on your contact list will get a unique link to your survey. And that is how Qualtrics tracks who has and has not completed your survey. Multiple completes is so that people can come back and finish it at another date. And then anonymous links is everybody gets the same link, and we're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. So at this point you can click Send Now, and you'll see that it's sending and it shows the details. just to, in the sake of saving time, I have already filled out the survey the first time. So I'm going to go over here to Data and Analysis. You can see I've filled out the survey a few times. This last row is the first time, and this corresponds to what we're doing right now. But what I want to show you is the data that comes from this. Let's look at this very first line of data. You have the start date and end date that the person started and ended. It tells you it came from an IP address. Here is the IP address from which I am working and filled out the survey. There is recipient first name, or last name rather, first name, and email address. These came from the contact list. It also collects latitude and longitude. You need to be careful with this. This is based on the IP address rather than my actual physical location. So if somebody is using a VPN, there's no telling what these locations might be. So if you want to know where the person is from, then you need to specifically ask that. Don't rely on the latitude and longitude for this. And there's the couple of questions that were in the survey that I answered. And then school and title also came from the contact list. So you can see, by default, Qualtrics will collect the IP address. IP address is considered personally identifying information. Latitude and longitude, kind of, sort of. And certainly the person's name and email are personally identifying information. So depending on your particular situation, you need to know when this information is being collected and when you can perhaps prevent it from being collected. So let's go back to our distributions. And as you're testing different ways of distributing and testing your emails, you need to delete prior distributions. If I were to just go ahead and try to send another email to myself, Qualtrics would say, oh, we've already sent this survey to this person. We're not going to do it again. So now I can compose the email again. You go through, same thing. And you also need to give it a new subject. I have to admit I'm not entirely sure why, but always give it a new subject as you're trying these things. And this time we'll go down to advanced options, and this time we're going to do anonymous. And as I mentioned before, anonymous link means everybody gets the same link, and Qualtrics cannot determine who has and has not responded to your survey. You can see down here it says reminder and thank you messages are not compatible with this link type. This link type will not track identifying information of respondents. So you do send now and it comes through. And again, I have already filled out the survey. And So we'll come back to our Excel sheet. Now we'll look at this second line. Again, it has collected the IP address, but as you can see, it didn't collect name or email address. It does take the latitude and longitude, and it did not take any of the information, any of the embedded data information. So basically, when you use an anonymous link in an email using a contact list, name, email, and any of the embedded data will not be collected. IP address is, and latitude and longitude are. Now, let's say you are sending your survey out and you don't have a contact list. In that case, you still have to use an anonymous link, but you can't use it from the email because you don't have the contact list. So you can use this anonymous link. This is a very common way of doing it. You have this link, and this is the link to your survey. You can customize it if you want and put in, this is my survey. But this is the link that everybody will use. You can copy and paste this into a web page. You can copy and paste it into an email that, say, you are going to send to a listserv. And just quickly, so you get the survey. And you're done. So we'll come back here. And again, I've already filled it out and downloaded the data so we can see. Now we're looking at this third line. And you can see it still collected the IP address and the latitude and longitude. But of course, since we didn't use a contact list, never had name and email and any of the embedded data fields. So these are really the three basic ways of distributing your survey. Again, IP address is considered personally identifying information. With the Anonymize Responses option, you can use this when you absolutely cannot record any identifying information. Turning the option on before the survey is distributed will prevent the default information, that being IP address, latitude, longitude, person's name, and email if you're using a contact list, from being collected in the first place. Turning this option on after the respondent or respondents have completed the survey will prevent that default information from being included in the downloaded data. That information is still part of the main data on the Qualtrics server. Embedded data fields from the contact list will be included in either case. The only way to make a contact list with embedded data completely anonymous is to use the Anonymize Responses option and an anonymous link. Let's take a look. So, what if you really and truly need to make this totally anonymous and not even collect IP address? Well, that's still possible. What you can do is you come back to Survey. You go into Survey Options. And then to Security. You go all the way down here to the bottom to Anonymize Responses. Don't record respondent's IP address, location data, and contact info. By default, that's off. You can turn it on. You need to publish it to make sure that it's saved that way. And we'll say OK. Now, with Anonymized Responses on, you can use that with either the email option or the anonymous link option. Both of them will work. And so let me show you what the data will look like. So now you can see we're looking at this last line, really. This was an email that I did, just like the first two. But you can see that the columns, for IP address, name, and email are not even in the data. It did, however, collect the embedded data fields from the contact list. Now, depending on what information is in there, that might be personally identifiable. Because, of course, I am the only research data services librarian at Syracuse University. So using those two bits of information, you can say, oh, this is Paul Burns' data. Another thing that I would like to point out is even with all the data that we collected previously, especially see on this first line, it still doesn't have the columns for the IP address, name, and email. So this is good if you need to download data to share with somebody, but you can't give them that identifiable information. Now I want to show you something else. We'll come back here to survey. Go back to options and security. And we'll turn this back off. And then publish. And here we go. And now you can see that all the data that we collected the first time is actually still there. It is still on the Qualtrics server. It simply wasn't downloaded. But of course, with this last line, the IP address was not collected to begin with. Same with name and email, and latitude and longitude. So you can have different results depending on how you upload or download your data and when you turn on or off the Anonymize Responses option. The only time that you can get 100% anonymized information is by using an anonymous link, whether it's the anonymous link distribution or the anonymous link in a email, along with the Anonymize Responses option. In that case, any of the information, the embedded data from the contact list, email and name, latitude and longitude, and IP address will not be collected or downloaded. So, in conclusion, Qualtrics has several methods of distributing your survey anonymously, even when using a contact list. Be sure you are fully aware of what effect the various methods will have on the data you collect. And confirm with your IRB or funding agency that whatever methods you choose will be sufficient protection of your respondent's privacy. Thank you. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Our contact information can be found on the web page. Be sure to watch the other modules on Anonymity in Qualtrics: Anonymity in Qualtrics Introduction, and Anonymity in Qualtrics Voluntary Contact Information.